Today we are with the incredible pregnant and pop partner, Gloria Wong. We will be talking with her about navigating the delicate balance between nurturing a family and managing the realities of life. Gloria has an incredible talent for providing pragmatic tips on managing relationships and money, a combination that is difficult sometimes even for the best of us. The important stuff, or some of the important stuff that we need to say. So these masterclasses are designed to be informative. We try and give evidence-based research ideas to all of the village through this platform, but we don't give medical or legal advice through this means. Okay, if you do have any medical questions or legal questions, always go to your professional providers, be that your doctors, your healthcare team, or your legal advisors. Super quick introduction about me. My name is Cathy Rougier. If you don't already know me through Pregnant and Popped, my core role, my core business is Empower, and I am a certified postpartum and infant care doula. That means that I spend a lot of time in the trenches in those first few days, weeks, and months with mums and families in their homes, providing that postpartum and kind of education, physical and emotional support to mums in regard to their recovery and their baby. So that can look like feeding, whether it's breastfeeding or bottle feeding, a lot of information around sleep, and really how to recover and get through those first few weeks and months as a new mother. But today isn't about me. Today is about Gloria. Gloria is a valued member of the village and the pregnant and pop community. I've been working with her for over a year now, and she has been floating around in the village supporting you all. I looked at Gloria's LinkedIn profile recently just to see if I could find out a little bit more about her, and I absolutely loved what she led off in her profile with. Okay. And I quote from her profile, "Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get." Now, that's a direct quote from Forrest Gump, and I absolutely love it because I think it's so, so relevant. And Gloria, like many of us, had a corporate life. She did 12 years in public affairs, internal and external communications, marketing, and a whole lot more. But then she says that everything as she knew it changed when she had her child. And of course, COVID came in all of that as well. And priorities and perspectives shifted for her. And with that came a career change. She joined her husband in the world of personal and business insurance, primarily for the flexibility that the nature of the job afforded her. And today she works closely with families to protect their loved ones and help them mitigate risk. But her approach is a little bit different. It centers around well-being, both the mental, emotional, and physical side. And she weaves that into making sense of the practical considerations that we all have to conquer and the things that she's going to help us cover off today. So without further ado, Gloria, I am going to stop sharing my screen, and Gloria is going to share her screen.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Gloria, and thank you for choosing this theme, diapers, dollars, and date nights. So just to set up quickly what we're going to do today, the intent is to provide pragmatic insight on navigating the big three, which are parenthood, finances, and marriage. Cathy, thank you so much for the beautiful introduction. So I'm Gloria. I have my background is in communications. In my previous job, I was at Chevron, which is an oil and gas major. I actually stopped work to try for a family, and then that leads to the second milestone, which is my very cute son. This is an old photo, but I wanted to use it because he looks so cute here. So life changed when I had my son because it shifted my priorities and it caused me to think about what I really want in life. And I felt that I needed to spend time with him. It took us 9 years to start a family. So time with him is important. I mean, you only live once, right? They're only young for so long. So I decided to let go of the idea of going back to my corporate work. And that's how I joined my husband, whose picture you see in the third milestone, in doing personal, general, and business insurance. I love my husband, but I cannot be with him 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So I started looking for people that I could work with. And that's how I met Kathy. I love what she's doing with Pregnant and Popped, and how it's all about building a supportive network for moms and also providing trusted advice that you can rely on. And it's great to be here. If you haven't joined the village yet, please do so. It's a wonderful place to be in. So when it came to parenthood, it felt like a lot of people are struggling with information overload and overwhelm. I think our generation is the most connected, and there's a lot of information flying your way. For example, when I had my son, I really struggled when it came to sleep, because people tell you, oh, you should sleep train and leave your child there to cry. And then I'd read something else that says, no, you can't leave your child to cry because it will affect their neurological development. You should hold them and keep him close. So I really struggled a lot in the first few weeks and months with knowing what to do and what I should do. Because it took us 9 years to have a child, I wanted to do everything the right way, right? You want to get everything as perfect as you can, but it doesn't always work that way. So my solution to this was to build a core team of trusted advisors that I could look to and trust to for guidance. So it was a bit difficult for me at first because everybody has something to say. But it took me a while to decide who I wanted to listen to and trust. For me, I felt that it was important to have a diversity of views. So even if I did not necessarily agree with them, I wanted to be able to hear what they had to say. So this approach that I adopted, I actually learned from my boss, and I really admired that about her, because the way she operated was that she would do that at work and with life. So she would have a few people that she would talk to that she could count on for advice. And she taught me it's not about listening and following to what everybody has to say, but it's taking the advice on board, deciding what works for you and what sits well with you, and then letting go of what doesn't. Her favorite quote to me was always, life is going to be hard. Your choice, there is no easy way out. It's just a matter of choosing your heart and choosing what you want to do. That being said, it's not set in stone. You can always change and you can always try something else. You can learn as you go along. So that's one thing I have to say. The second thing I also have to say is to spend time on engagement and advocacy. So this is the comms person in me coming out, because there are some people that you're going to have to work with. For example, your child's childcare teacher. You can't change that person. They may not be an advisor, but it's somebody that you're going to have to work closely with. So I see this from personal experience, because my son has a very unique personality combination in that he has anxiety, but he is also persistent, which is a very rare combination. Usually kids who are anxious are not persistent, and vice versa. So when we do school drop-offs, it can be difficult and it can take a long time. Even if he's been at the school for 3 years, sometimes drop-offs can take 20 minutes. On bad days, it could take half an hour. On good days, it takes 2-3 minutes, right? But it's about being patient with him. And I've had to tell the teachers that he's not a difficult child. It's just that he has anxiety and he can be worried. He wants things to be done in a certain way. So it's helping them to understand a bit more about him and how he works, and to try to work with him to help him to be able to adjust to school. If your child is going to go to school and you have questions about how to manage, how to engage the teachers, you can always ping me, and I'm happy to chat more with you about that. Who have you spoken to? So if you may not have had a conversation, it may have been something like a source that you've been reading. For example, maybe you've been watching YouTube or you've been going to a portal. I want you to list down these people or sources, how they made you feel, and what you liked about your communication and or interaction with them. I want to do this mini exercise because my friend went through something recently which I was very disturbed about, and I wanted to use this opportunity to be able to address it. Maybe you were in the village chat talking to people. Maybe you're talking to an expert. It could be your mother-in-law. It could be your best friend. So you just think about who you spoke to, what you spoke to them about. How did it make you feel? Did it leave you feeling inspired? Were you encouraged? And if it's negative, you can be honest about that too. It made me feel like crap. It made me feel like I should be doing more as a mother. Now, I will tell you the background story as to why I wanted to do this mini exercise at this juncture. What is the value of conversing with someone you deem wise if it leaves you feeling disheartened? Okay. I just want you to think about this because I had a friend who I love dearly. She is sweet, thoughtful, funny, and kind. She is a loving mother, and she has only one child. So when she had her child, she brought her son to a pediatrician who she heard was famous for being wise and for being reasonable in his approach, meaning that he wouldn't just put lots of medicine on you, he wouldn't force you to do surgery. He was very measured in his approach. So she went to him and she was telling me about him. But what I was very disturbed about was every time she went to see him, every session will always be like, didn't you know you should be doing this as a mother? Why are you doing that? Don't you know any better? And it was constantly berating her and putting her down. And it just wasn't very pleasant. So she stuck with him because she liked his approach with regards to treating her son. And she liked that he has a lot of experience. He's wise and it's near her house. It's not too far to travel. But I asked her, certainly he cannot be the only doctor in Singapore who is wise, has experience, is measured in his approach, and is within reasonable distance for you to travel to. There are so many pediatric doctors in Singapore. Why do you have to keep going to him? It is not going to be good for your mental and emotional health. It just doesn't make sense, which is why I have this illustration here with the heart and with the mind. If someone has wisdom that you value, but they don't help your heart, please don't do it. Your mental health and emotional health is far much more important than being able to talk to someone. There are many doctors in Singapore, and I'm sure Kathy would be able to recommend you some doctors that you could look to if you don't like your current doctor. So the second thing I wanted to address when it came to navigating parenthood is about understanding your child. And this one I decided to share from personal experience because I found it a bit challenging in my first few months to understand him, and later on when he was a bit older, to really be able to connect with him. I realized I needed to be patient with myself because this is a newborn. He is entering the world for the first time. He is discovering everything for the first time. His reactions and any actions that he displayed is a form of communication. Covering his ears if there's a loud sound, crying at certain things, it's his way of communicating. So I decided to put what I know from work and apply it to my child. There are communication and learning styles, 3 common styles. So you have audio and visual, which is quite self-explanatory. And then you have kinesthetic, which is like the physical tactile approach. So if you're talking about learning in school, it'll be the hands-on work, right? So how did this apply to my son? I'll give you an example. So when it came to making time tangible for him, I wanted for him to be able to learn the concept of time. He is very sticky with me, and I wanted to be able to help him get used to being able to have time alone. So I first began with the hourglass on the left. So I have something similar to this. Blue is 1 minute, green is 2 minutes, red is 5 minutes. I thought, okay, so I said, hey, Mama's going to be stepping out for just a while. Then I turned the hourglass over and said, I'll come back before this runs out. I thought it was a great way for him to be able to physically see the concepts of time. But I later realized that it didn't really work. Although visually he had something to look at, he's actually more of an audio person. And this I realized because his ears are very sharp. He would be able to hear the front door opening from a room in the back of the house. I don't know how he hears, but he knows. When people laugh, he cries because he finds the sound too loud for him. He also likes touching things and working with his hands. And this I discovered because when he was learning to crawl, he wouldn't really move very far or do anything. But if he was trying to chase me and trying to grab onto something, he ran so, not run, but he would crawl really fast and you'd get shocked by how speedy he was moving because he wanted to touch, he wanted to hold, he wanted to feel things. So that's when I started introducing the timer you see in the center. It's tactile because you have to turn it to set it. You press a button and then you can see it visually moving. There's also a tick tick sound, but it's not that loud. And then the timer would ring. To get it to stop ringing, you'd have to switch it off. So there's physical movement involved. So that worked better for him because there's visual, but there's also audio and there's tactile touch involved. Now that he's older, I actually use the iPad and he finds this really funny because you can choose all sorts of cartoon characters. Not characters, but there's different scenes. For example, the one I have here is a boy on a boat. Then one of the ones that he likes is a dog pooping. Don't ask me why, but he likes that. So it's his way of being able to see and to understand how time is ticking by. So that's what I mean by understanding your child and trying to learn to communicate. So at the end of the webinar, I'm actually giving away free work like guidebooks to help you to process whatever that we're discussing here. So we'll actually have some exercises in the book to help you to understand and to observe your child's communication styles and to be able to write observation notes and tweak things. Let's go on now. We're going to go towards money. We're talking about money management. A major challenge is we have finite resources, but there are many needs and differing opinions, right? So how do you handle money? What are you going to do? I think the first thing I would say to you is, which hill are you willing to die on? Okay, so imagine that you were going to battle and you want to defend your turf. Let's say if you talk about Singapore, you've got Bukit Timah Hill, you've got the hill at Sentosa and different hills. Which hill are you willing to defend and to die on? These are what are non-negotiables for you. These are your priorities. And so that's where you should focus your expense on first. Second point is to avoid being penny wise, pound foolish. So a lot of times you're like, oh, I want to save money by doing this and doing this. But does it really help in the long run? For example, my son's school decided to save money by photocopying the workbooks for the children. It seems like a good idea at first, right? Because you save money, you don't have to buy the physical books that way. But there's implications. The workbook that they photocopied was in black and white. Some of the exercises require you to identify the colors. How are you going to identify the colors if it's in black and white? So essentially, they just wasted money photocopying books for 20 children because they didn't think about it. Last point is, what is really needed at this point? Is that expense truly necessary? So as Kathy introduced just now, I do personal, general, and business insurance, right? So when people ask me about insurance, hey, what should I buy for my baby? I always say the first thing you should get is hospital insurance, because when baby is healthy, the earliest you can buy is at 15 days old. That's when you should get it, because you really don't know what's going to happen. then the next question always is that all? Then what about my accident? What about my critical illness? And my response is, you can get the critical illness if you feel it's necessary. For example, for families with medical history of having different cancers in the family, that might be a concern for you to think about. For accident, I would say you get it when baby is mobile, then the risk is higher. So that's it. I want to ask, do you really save money through group buys? Let me know what you think. Yes? No?
Gloria, by group buys, do you mean when people get together and like bulk buy something and then distribute it amongst themselves?
Something like that, or you can host it. So the QR code that I have here is one that Yiling runs, the baby planner. So she's actually going, I'm working with her and a few other people to launch a group buy for parents to buy travel essentials. So if you want, you can scan the code, join the group buy. But I'm bringing this up because a lot of parents think, oh, if I join group buys to come together with other parents, I can save money. It's not necessarily true, because you might end up spending more and buying more than you need. So I say group buys are good, but make sure you have the discipline to be able to stop and not buy too much. The second thing is, how do we talk about money? So that's a question that has been coming up. And because of my comms background, I say it starts by knowing who you are and who you are talking to. So the source of the message and the recipient of the message. Generally, personality assessments classify us into 4 different personality types. So from left to right, we have DISC, E-colors, and Berkman. So you'll notice that the colors are similar yet different, but generally it's the same. You will have a doer, you have a communicator, you have someone who is a bit of more of a thinker, more detail-oriented, and then you have someone that's more relational, that's creative, that likes ideas and things like that. Okay? So why I bring this up is because we are wired with all 4. So the picture that you see here is actually quite representative of who I am as a person. I'm more of a communicator, thinker person. I can execute and do stuff, but my analytical skills are, I wouldn't say it's non-existent. There is a bit, but it takes a lot of effort for me to be able to analyze and to go into detail. So how does this affect my communication with my husband when we're talking about money? This is how. My husband is more of a how person. He's into the details. I am more of a who and a why person. I'm more of a relational person. I like to explore, to get to the root of things. Why do people do certain things the way they do? Who is involved in it, right? For him, although sometimes he might care about people, but he also wants to know what is being happened. Is there any action that's going to be taken at the end of the day? Right? So if I'm talking to my husband about money, or if we're talking about making a finance decision, he's going to ask me for details. And as someone who operates from the who and why spectrum, it can be hard for me because I may not be able to anticipate all the questions that he may ask. I may not also have all the information on hand because it just didn't occur to me to get it. So if I have money conversations with him, for example, if we're talking about making a big purchase like buying a pram, babies and yo-yo costs, I don't know how many hundreds of dollars, right? So he would ask me 1,001 questions that sometimes I couldn't answer. I'll just tell him, okay, this is the website, you can go and take a look. Or we'd go to the mall and say, okay, this is what I'm looking at. You can talk to the person and then they can give you the specs and all. So that's how I would handle conversations with him. I would initiate, but I know my strong point is not in the detail. I can anticipate to a certain extent, but I make sure I have access to that. So if I can answer his questions, he can get the answers himself. So I say focus the conversation on what you believe the other party is more inclined towards. And also think about what do you usually focus on and how that impacts the conversation. Because if you are like me, you care about who and why, you're not going to think about the details. And if you're going to have a conversation and you're not ready, the conversation is either going to stonewall or die off. It doesn't work. So how can you initiate conversation? 3 simple ways. You could use an external source. For example, you could say, oh, I just attended this webinar today, or I read this article online. You could also use it from your perspective, like you have some feelings that you have, or you have some thoughts and you actually want to deal with it or talk through it. The third approach is to focus on a collaboration and a partnership. So here, I don't know if you've heard of the term life admin, but that's where you do things like your family logistics, and then you could even talk about your finances. You can talk about things like which school should you send your child to, things like that. The other way you can do the collab and partnership is approach it from a forward-looking angle. What does the future look like for both of you? Where do both of you want to be in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time? So how do I manage money if one of us is going on sabbatical? And managing childcare. So childcare is ridiculously expensive in Singapore. There's no way to escape it. I would say to go and look around at your options and to see what is suitable for you. What is really important to you in a childcare? Is it the distance to your house? Is it the teachers? Because I know some parents who are willing to pay an arm and a leg even though they don't earn that much, because they believe that the environment is very important for a child's growing up years. So they save on other things. For example, their vacations, they go to Sentosa, they go to Malaysia. They don't go very far. They may not take holidays very often. It's just you take the bus into JB, enjoy a day or two, and then you come back, right? It's what do you prioritize? And if one of you is taking leave and you're going to be on a single income family, I'd say to look at the risk involved in doing that, because life is unpredictable. What if somebody gets laid off? Do you have enough resources in your bank to be able to support the family if this happens? Do you have enough money set aside for emergencies? How long can your funds last you? Things like that. There are many things to think about, but it is possible to budget, and it is possible. People say, oh, it's Singapore, it's so expensive, it's not possible. It is. You can find ways to reduce your expenses. For example, cook at home, eat simple meals instead of spending on going to playgrounds. Just go to the park nearby, go to the beach. There are different ways to manage your expenses, and it's just about being creative with the way you come up with solutions. Always remember, children don't remember the expensive stuff, but they remember the quality time that they have with you. In talking about conversing with your spouse or your partner about money, please remember, your identity and your motivations shape your decisions and direction when it comes to managing money. So there are many strategies and action plans that exist. What works for your spouse may not work for you. For example, my husband can live and die by a spreadsheet. I can't do that. So the way I manage money is different from the way he manages his money. And we have to agree on certain things on how we're going to do things as a family. At this juncture, I would like to ask, would you be interested in helping me do a beta test for Money Story? So I'm taking my communications background with the work that I'm doing now, because I feel it's important to know who you are and why you do what you do before actually talking about how you want to manage your money. What do you want to do? So this is something that I've been working on, and I'm looking for people to help me with this. And if you are open to it, please scan the QR code, drop me a WhatsApp message, or you can always message me in the chat here on Zoom. Let me know. I'm really hoping to get this off the ground and get feedback on what I've been working on. So if you would, that would be great. Thank you so much. Now let's go on to date nights, marriage relationship. So someone was asking, how do you find time to chat? Finding time to chat does not necessarily have to be, going out for a big date night. For my husband and I, to tell you truthfully, I was having supper while I was pumping. So he'll make food for us that time when I was breastfeeding, right? He'd make like a sandwich, or he'll make something for both of us. So we'll eat while I was pumping, and then we actually use that time to talk. It sounds weird now thinking about it, like, why are we doing this? But it just made the most sense for us because we didn't have the time, and that was a good way for us to be able to connect and share our thoughts. So a lot of times people think, oh, it's a big change for the mom because you get pregnant and a 3 kilo baby is coming out of the body. It's huge. But your partner is also adjusting and going through change too. So both of you need to think, what are your needs and expectations, and what about your partner's? Miscommunication and disappointment happens when there's no clarity. So you need to talk. Do not assume. Your partner is not a mind reader. So talk about how you're feeling with regards to your roles, your responsibilities with the baby. There's going to be a lot of emotion involved, especially in the first year of baby's life. So if you're having a second child, it's going to be a lot more emotion because you have your baby, you have the elder one who's adjusting, and then there's the two of you. So because there's a lot of emotions, I want to suggest to you to empty out the water in your glass, because the water in your glass shapes what you see. Water being your emotions. So think of your heart as like the glass here, and your emotions as the water. It actually distorts your perspective. So if you look at the picture on the left, the slice of lemon is actually at the bottom of the cup, but it doesn't look like it. The water distorts your reality. So you need to be able to slowly empty out and manage your emotions to be able to see things clearly, to decide a path forward. I also want to highlight, this is really important to know, men can also experience baby blues and postpartum depression. Just because they didn't birth a human does not mean that they are not susceptible to it. It is a big change, and it is a transition for them. So the difference between baby blues and postpartum depression is that baby blues is a bit more fleeting. If you would like, I actually have a table where I've listed out the differences between baby blues and depressions and some things to look for. So if you'd like that, let me know. I want to round off today's presentation by reminding you that challenges are not forever. They're like the waves you see here in this video. They come and they go. There's going to be different challenges, different things happening, but it will be okay as long as you keep putting one foot in front of the other and just keep on going. Get support if you need help. Talk to people. Kathy has built a really beautiful village where you've got many pros supporting you. Reach out to me if you like. Know that life is not meant to be done alone. We're meant to do it with people. My favorite quote is, if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you go together.
Wow, Gloria, there is so many amazing insights that you came up with along the way. So much, yeah, that was relevant. I mean, sitting here as a professional, I didn't know whether to have my professional hat on or my mum hat on a lot of the time, because so much of what you were saying resonated on both sides, like what I'd experienced and felt, but also what I hear from clients. I think probably without exception, all of those things you were talking about, I think probably comes up for everyone. It might look slightly different for different people.
Absolutely.
I mean, I definitely, when you were talking about choosing who to let in, who to have in your village, and when you were talking about these wise people that we actually do need to have in our lives, we do need to have doctors and pediatricians. But that one really resonated with me, because the number of conversations I have with clients who come away from their early pediatric doctor appointments, feeling often very judged. They really can. And it can really impact those early days, weeks and months, and even years. So if they stay with the same doctor. And I'm always urging people to kind of truly think it's not just about the physical. It's not just about the qualifications.
Absolutely.
These people are part of your village.
Yes.
And there's a lot of options out there now. You don't need to stay with the one provider that you started off with.
Yeah.
Very much so. Very, very much so.
Exactly. So for me, I switched pediatricians and I think to myself, why didn't I do it earlier? Sometimes I think about it and I feel so silly for not having done it, which is why I knew when I put this in, you'd have a lot to say. So for all the parents who are listening here, if you need to make a change, do it. It's okay
Absolutely.
to change.
Absolutely. I think that goes for pediatricians. It goes for a lot of the specialist support in and around feeding and sleep actually as
Yes.
well. So
Yes.
especially around lactation and breastfeeding and bottle feeding. If you're not getting the support or if you might be getting technical support, but if it's not
Yep.
resonating with you on an emotional level, if you're not walking out of the consultation room feeling like someone's got your back, that someone
Yep.
really, really is on your side,
Yep.
then there's so many other providers out there. And it
Absolutely.
never hurts to try. You don't have to have one. You can have multiple and kind of listen
Yes.
and take the bits that you need to from different people along the way. Very, very much so.
I suddenly just thought of something. One of my girlfriends had a confinement nanny, and her confinement nanny in the first few days actually made her feel depressed and down because she was struggling with breastfeeding and she was making all sorts of comments about her as a new mom. I want you to know that if you have to change confinement nanny, it's okay and it is your right to change confinement nanny. It applies to all other
Yeah.
services as well, but particularly for confinement nanny, please do not be scared to change.
Just this morning, actually, I was having a conversation with someone that regarding a mother whose colleague apparently had decided to offload their opinions on different methods that a sleep consultant was advising them on. And it really, really got to this particular woman that this other woman had kind of offloaded her views and thoughts in a very unsolicited manner. And I think it happens so much these days, doesn't it? I guess because we're so used to people sharing on social media that people think it's kind of okay to do it in real life as well. And yeah, it has a really profound impact sometimes on those early kind of days where you're forming your bonds and trying to work out what type of mother and family you're going to be. And yeah, definitely the journey with confinement nannies. It's one of those things. I think it's about finding that match. It's about finding the right person, and there are some really, really good ones out here. And without a shadow of a doubt, having someone caring for you, cooking for you, those sorts of things, it's needed. You're not meant to do this alone. We're meant to have people around us when we've given birth and when we're building a family. But yeah, having someone around that is going to respect your views, is going to know when to step back and when to step forward. And I think that's possibly what confinement nannies in the modern sense don't necessarily get the training for. They don't have that training to know when to recognize what's going on emotionally and mentally, maybe sometimes with mums and dads. So sometimes they step in when they shouldn't, and sometimes they aren't there when they should be, and it can cause confusion. If there's any mums that are have considered using confinement food but don't want to do traditional confinement food, there are some other wonderful options here. So a lot of people want to have the convenience and they want to know that they're going to be eating healthily, but they don't necessarily want to have the broths and that kind of thing. So there are companies out there like Fit Mum Kitchen that do so similar to Nutrition Kitchen, but really, really tasty, designed for women in mind. And they do meal deliveries, be it 1, 2, or 3 meal deliveries a day. So it's just another option out there if you wanted healthy food to be delivered that wasn't necessarily the traditional confinement foods as well. Just sharing that out there, because a lot of my clients go for that option if they don't have a helper at home that's cooking for them during that time.
Thank you, Kathy. I think that's great. Thank you for being here today. Kathy and I really appreciate you. And if you are not part of the village, please join us.
Well, I hope everyone got something out of today. I genuinely did. Like, it really resonated with my own journey at the start, and a lot of what I see my clients' journeys look like. So I think I've got to say I know I've got to say a huge thank you to Gloria. Thank you for sharing your insights, not only from your professional background, but also from your motherhood journey. It's amazing when we can link things back to people's personal journeys. It makes it so much more real for us. So thank you so much, guys. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.